Today I talked with Liz and Sandra and asked them to contribute to my blog by giving their impressions of uh, Death on the Nile. Because with some of Christie's great novels, I want to try and generate a little bit more discussion or get some ideas going that I might not have thought of. So here's their take on it. And the first question I have for you, Liz, is did you figure out this murder?
This one, I think I've read it twice, but no.
Your first time you did
My
not?
first time I did not figure it out.
Can you comment on the ingenuity of the plot or lack thereof? What do you think of it?
It was, as you were saying before, huge body count, enormous body count. But when you think about what Poirot said earlier, I think he says this to Jackie when he runs into her outside of the cabin. He says something like, after one murder it becomes much easier to kill a person. After you've killed someone, you can kill other people very easily. So that's really brought out in that the murderer, you see how much easier the subsequent murders become, and how, maybe a couple of these people didn't really need to be killed, especially at the very end. This is the final murder didn't have to be done, but except for personal reasons. So that was pretty cool.
Okay, I'm asking Sandra some questions about Death on the Nile. Sandra, first, what do you like about this book?
I love the characters. It was really interesting in the beginning right away where that dynamic of the young couple in love and that you could tell that something was going to happen and you knew it wasn't good.
Okay.
But
And how does this compare to other Poirot novels for you that you've read?
Poirot wasn't so... he wasn't as nice and accommodating as he usually is. He was basically just really business oriented, and he seemed like he was on vacation and or on holiday rather.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of going, he did a great job, but he was just really business oriented about it.
Very cool. Okay, Liz. In the novel, Simon Doyle explains to Poirot that Jackie was like the moon, and when he met Lynette, she was like the sun, and she obscured the moon. And so after he met Lynette, Jackie just didn't exist.
Couldn't appear at
So
all.
tell me a little bit about how that resonated for you in this story.
Well, I guess I'll start out with, I'm not a beautiful woman, but I have many beautiful friends. And especially the one I was just on the phone with. It can be very frustrating to be around people like that because,
Feeling
maybe you're
eclipsed by them?
exactly, or not even eclipsed, just completely obscured. You can only exist in a certain. You can only exist when that person isn't around. You can only be noticed. You still exist, but no one takes notice until then. Now I was thinking about this a while ago, and not in terms of myself at all, but there are certain times during the day that you can see the moon when it rises, and you can actually see it in the sky before it's dark out. So I don't know. I just think that looks kind of cool in how it plays out in the book. That at some points, especially when Jackie is persecuting the couple, he does take notice of her. He can see her, even though he's with Lynette, the sun, who
And
should
of
be
course-
blocking everything out.
Yeah, and of course, with the cycle of the sun and moon, that's
Right.
a temporal sort of
Right.
dominance that only takes place for, a certain number of hours of the day.
Right, and
So that
then
could
the
play-
moon itself that comes more strongly into herself, and then fades, and then comes more strongly again into herself,
Interesting.
as Jackie kind of wanes and waxes
Yeah.
throughout the novel.
Okay, cool. And what was your favorite scene or favorite aha moment in the novel?
Are you sure I could say it?
Yeah, I'll blip you
Okay.
out if it
Okay.
reveals anything.
I love the scene where Jackie, or is it Jacqueline? And what's the guy's name?
Simon.
Where Jackie shoots Simon, and you can tell that there are people moving in the scene, that there's things happening that Agatha Christie isn't quite telling you about, but you know that there's characters moving in the shadows that you don't know what's going on yet. And that was kind of my first aha moment where I knew, basically it had confirmed what I thought in the beginning of the book. It did carry on to the end.
Okay.
So that was really just fun.
One last question. Do you think the novel would have been as powerful if it had been, say, a novel just taking place in England?
No,
Does it need Egypt?
It needed Egypt. I love just the rocks that are on the Nile, the black rocks that they talk about, and the ambiance about the ruins, and that one of the characters he doesn't really care for the ruins. He says they're old, and it doesn't have anything to do with him today, and that's so odd that any character would ever think that. It really needed Egypt, and that was my favorite part about the book, was the setting.
Very cool. Thank you. What would you say that the setting with all of these ancient Egyptian monuments and hieroglyphs and the river itself, does it resonate in any way for you with the novel and with the meaning of the novel? Any comments on that?
Two main comments. I'm going to try to remember both of them. I think, in one way, how we were talking a little while ago about sort of pre-Christian religion and stuff, like when you go back to things that aren't in a religion, they're just a part of spirituality or superstition or something like that. The idea of vengeance and of sacrifice definitely come into play, and sometimes the two of them together. Sacrifice not necessarily for the greater good, but sacrifice for punishment or for an individual's good. If I kill this person, something good will happen to me, I'll take this person's life force, those kinds of ideas. That's not exactly how it works in the novel, but I think having the backdrop of this somewhat more violent civilization, I don't know if it's really more violent, but the imagery and the things one takes away from it seem more violent, especially if you've got a lot of a whole bunch of gods, and each god demands something else, so you're pulled in all these different directions. Ooh, the sun and moon thing, I never thought about connecting that with the Egyptian gods. Yeah! Oh, that would be for another question, I suppose. So, I think the background of Egypt is important in that not only are you taking yourself out of the English civilization, which one thinks, well, as long as you're in a civilized society, these things can't happen. So you're gone from there, you're out in the wilderness that is Egypt, and so you're kind of allowed to kill people because you're not bound by your own rules anymore.
So this enclave of British folks traveling throughout, traveling outside of their realm, and even in this case outside of the colonies, because Egypt is independent of that. So you're saying that maybe it sets the stage. They are no longer bound by Western ideals, Christian morality.
Right, exactly.
And so they can act in a freer manner.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, out of more fundamental or deeper basic urges.
Basic urges, yeah.
That in a normal society that they would conquer through religion or through social works or different things.
Yeah, through something, or at least they would not express them quite so freely. The second point is less about Egypt and more about the idea of all these people on a boat. They can occasionally get off and go to shore where other crazy things happen and rocks fall on people, but they're isolated on this boat.
So it's a locked room mystery, essentially.
Yes, it is. It's a locked room mystery. You get some people coming and going. You have is it the lieutenant or the colonel who comes on to find out about the revolutionary, but
kind of a terrorist character.
Right, yeah. But essentially, it is a locked room, and whenever you have a certain set of people in a certain set of circumstances isolated from the rest of the world, whenever it is, if it's like war buddies, or if it's people on the road and you don't know anyone but each other, all these circumstances, you have these people together in a stressful situation, just trying to figure out what's going on before everyone else gets killed off. I mean, people are just dropping like flies. But so it's kind of like 10 Little Indians, where you've got all these people just trying to figure things out before they all die. You have the terror throughout. Who's going to be next? So psychologically, being on a boat is really interesting. And then not only are they isolated, what would I want to say? Geographically is too big a word, but they're isolated by water. They're trapped in one place. The only people they can turn to linguistically, the only people they can talk to are people that they don't know if they can trust, because they might be talking to a murderer or a jewel thief or a revolutionary or a terrorist. They have no idea what's going on. And then,
You're